You know what I've noticed? The loudest people in the room rarely own the room. They rent it for an hour, then disappear. But there's a different kind of power that most people never learn about. The kind that doesn't announce itself, doesn't need applause, doesn't require witnesses. I call it winning quietly. And here's the strange part. The moment you stop trying to prove you're winning is often the exact moment you actually start to win. Most people get this backward their entire lives. They think success is supposed to be loud, visible, celebrated. So they chase the noise, they perform, they broadcast, and they wonder why, after all that effort, they still feel empty. Let me share something with you today that changed everything for me. 6 rules that have nothing to do with being seen and everything to do with becoming someone worth being. Now, before we go any further, I need you to understand why this matters. You've been lied to about what success looks like. The culture has convinced you that winning means being seen, being loud, being celebrated. So you're exhausted, performing, posting, proving. And deep down you're wondering why it still doesn't feel like enough. Here's the truth they won't tell you. The most powerful people you'll ever meet don't need your attention. They've built something real, something sustainable, something that exists whether you notice it or not. This isn't about becoming invisible. It's about becoming unshakable. It's about building a life where your success doesn't depend on anyone's validation, where your peace isn't conditional on applause, where your progress happens in the quiet hours that nobody sees. I'm going to show you how to win without needing witnesses, how to accumulate wealth, character, and influence in ways that don't require a stage. See, the common advice says, build your personal brand, get noticed, stand out, but here's what they're not telling you. Your brand is what you do when no one's watching. Your reputation is built in private, long before it's recognized in public. The people who chase visibility rarely build anything that lasts. But the people who master the quiet disciplines, they become inevitable. What you're going to gain from this is freedom from the need to prove yourself, confidence that doesn't collapse when the room goes silent, a life built on substance, not spectacle, and 6 simple, repeatable rules that will transform how you work, build, and win quietly. Let me tell you about 2 people I knew early in my career. Both started with nothing. Both worked hard. Both wanted success. But they approached life very differently. The first one, let's call him David, was always visible. Every small win, he announced. Every deal, he celebrated publicly. New car, everyone knew. Promotion, post about it. He made sure you understood he was climbing. And for a while, it worked. People noticed. They congratulated him. He felt successful. He felt like he was on the right path because everywhere he went, people were acknowledging his progress. He'd walk into a room and people would say, congratulations on the new position. Congratulations on the new house. Congratulations on the new deal. And each time someone said that, it felt like confirmation. It felt like he was doing life right. But here's what was happening beneath the surface. David was building his life around those moments of recognition. He was structuring his decisions, his purchases, his career moves around what would generate the most visible impact. He wasn't asking himself, does this serve my long-term goals? He was asking, will people notice this? Will this make them think I'm successful? And slowly, without even realizing it, he became addicted to the reaction. His motivation wasn't coming from internal standards anymore. It was coming from external validation. And that's a dangerous place to live. The second one, we'll call her. Margaret did the opposite. She worked just as hard, maybe harder, but she didn't broadcast it. No fanfare, no announcements. She'd close a deal and move on to the next one. She'd hit a goal and set a bigger one. Quiet, focused, relentless. I remember asking her once, why don't you celebrate more? Why don't you let people know what you're accomplishing? And she said something I'll never forget. She said, I don't need them to know, I need me to know. And when I know I've done excellent work, that's enough. At first I thought she was just being modest. But as I watched her over the years, I realized it was something much deeper than modesty. It was wisdom. It was a fundamental understanding that her success couldn't be dependent on other people's awareness of it. She understood that the moment she made her sense of accomplishment conditional on recognition, she'd given away her power. She'd made her peace borrowed, her confidence rented, and she wasn't willing to do that. 10 years later, I ran into both of them. David looked tired, stressed, still talking about his success, but something felt hollow. Turns out, He'd built a lifestyle he couldn't sustain. He was leveraged to the hilt, working to maintain the image, trapped by the very success he'd been so loud about. He wasn't free. He was performing. Every month, he had to generate enough income to cover the car payment on the luxury vehicle, the mortgage on the house that was bigger than he needed, the country club membership, the private school tuition. All of it chosen, not because it served his life, but because it announced his life. And here's the trap he didn't see coming. Once you build that kind of lifestyle, you can't scale it back without everyone noticing. And if everyone notices, then you look like a failure. So he was stuck maintaining an image, stuck working not for freedom, but for the appearance of freedom. And the stress was eating him alive. You could see it in his eyes, the exhaustion, the quiet desperation behind the loud confidence. Margaret, she owned 3 businesses. Quietly, no one really knew. She didn't need them to. She'd built something real, something that didn't require applause to exist, something that didn't collapse the moment people stopped watching. She was free, truly free. She could make decisions based on wisdom, not on what would look good. She could take risks, pivot, experiment, fail, learn all of it in private, all of it without the pressure of maintaining a public narrative. When I asked her how business was going, she smiled and said, "It's going well." And I could tell from the peace in her voice that it really was. Not because she needed to convince me, but because she'd built something solid, something that existed independent of anyone's opinion. Something that gave her options, margin, breathing room. She wasn't working to impress people. She was working to build a life. And there's a massive difference. And here's what I learned from watching them. Visibility is not the same as value. Noise is not the same as substance. The market doesn't care how loud you are. It cares what you've actually built. And the people who understand this, they win quietly. They win permanently. They don't burn out trying to maintain an image. They don't collapse when the applause stops. They just keep building, keep improving, keep moving forward, whether you're watching or not. Now, you might be wondering, does that mean I should never share my wins? Should I hide everything? No, that's not the point. Let me explain the difference. There's nothing wrong with celebrating success. There's nothing wrong with sharing good news with people who genuinely care about you. The problem comes when you need the celebration more than you value the accomplishment itself. The problem comes when the sharing isn't about connection, it's about validation. When the post isn't about joy, it's about proving your worth. That's when you know you've crossed the line from healthy sharing into unhealthy performing. Let me tell you about another season in my life. A season when everything fell apart. Business failed, money gone, confidence shattered, and I had a choice. I could either broadcast my struggle, seek sympathy, make noise about my pain, or I could go silent and rebuild in private. I chose silence. And let me tell you, that wasn't easy. Because when you're struggling, there's a temptation to explain yourself, to justify what happened, to make sure everyone understands it wasn't your fault, to control the narrative. But I realized something important. The people who mattered didn't need an explanation. And the people who needed an explanation didn't matter. So I stopped explaining and started building. For 2 years, I didn't talk about what I was doing. I didn't update people. I didn't explain myself. I just worked, read books, studied successful people, changed my philosophy, built new disciplines. Every day, alone in a small apartment, I worked on becoming someone different, someone better, someone capable of handling the success I wanted. I'd wake up early, before the sun came up, and I'd sit with my books. I'd study the lives of people who'd built what I wanted to build. I'd take notes. I'd reflect. I'd ask myself hard questions. Why did I fail? What did I miss? What do I need to learn? What kind of person do I need to become to deserve the life I want? And nobody saw it. No one cheered for it. There were no likes, no comments, no witnesses. Just me and the work. Some mornings I'd sit there and feel completely alone. I'd wonder if anyone even remembered I existed. I'd think about reaching out, updating people, letting them know I was still here, still working, still trying. But I didn't. Because I knew that the moment I started seeking validation, I'd lose focus. I'd start working for the reaction instead of working for the result. And I couldn't afford that. I needed every ounce of energy focused on becoming better. And you know what I discovered? When you remove the audience, you remove the distraction. When there's no one to perform for, you stop performing and start building. When there's no applause to chase, you start chasing excellence instead. I started measuring my progress differently, not by who noticed, but by what changed. Did I read today? Did I learn something new? Did I apply what I learned? Did I keep my commitments to myself? Those became my metrics. And slowly, day by day, I started to change. Not in ways anyone could see, but in ways I could feel. My thinking became clearer. My discipline became stronger. My philosophy became sharper. I stopped blaming circumstances and started taking responsibility. I stopped waiting for permission and started creating opportunity. I stopped looking for shortcuts and started embracing the long road. And all of this happened in silence, in private, in the hours no one saw. 2 years later, I emerged different. Not louder, not flashier, just better, quietly better. And everything changed. The opportunities came, the money came, the respect came, not because I announced myself, but because I had become someone worth listening to. People could sense the difference. They couldn't always articulate what had changed, but they knew something was different. There was a solidity that hadn't been there before, a confidence that didn't need to prove itself, a competence that spoke for itself. Here's the principle. The work you do in private determines the life you live in public. Your secret disciplines create your public results. The hours no one sees produce the success everyone wants. And if you can learn to love the process more than the applause, you'll build something that actually lasts. Because here's the truth. Applause fades. It's temporary. It's fleeting. But the person you become in the quiet, that's permanent. That's yours. That goes with you everywhere. So how do you do this? How do you win quietly in a world that rewards noise? Let me break down the 6 rules. These aren't theories. These aren't motivational concepts. These are the actual disciplines that separate people who build real success from people who just look successful. And I'm warning you right now, these rules require maturity. They're not flashy. They won't get you a lot of attention in the short term, but they will give you something much more valuable, a life that works, a life that lasts, a life that's built on substance instead of spectacle. Rule number 1, measure progress privately, not publicly. Here's what I mean by that. Stop measuring your success by who's watching and start measuring it by who you're becoming. Most people make their progress dependent on external validation. They need the comment, they need the congratulations, they need someone to notice. And the moment that validation stops, their motivation dies. That's a fragile way to live. That's building your house on sand. Because what happens when people stop paying attention? What happens when the comments slow down? What happens when you post something and nobody responds? Does your motivation collapse? Does your sense of progress evaporate? If so, you're in trouble. Because you've made your success dependent on something you can't control other people's attention. The alternative? Develop private metrics. Ask yourself questions only you can answer. Am I better today than I was yesterday? Did I do the work I said I would? Am I building the disciplines that lead to the life I want? Did I keep my word to myself? These questions don't need an audience. They need honesty. And when you start measuring yourself by your private commitments instead of your public image, something shifts. You stop performing and start progressing. You stop seeking approval and start building character. Let me give you a practical example. Let's say you want to get in better shape. The public way to measure that is to post about your workouts, share your progress photos, announce your goals, and wait for people to encourage you. And sure, there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but here's the problem. When you do that, you're training yourself to work for the reaction. You're conditioning yourself to associate the workout with the post, the discipline with the recognition. And what happens on the days when you don't feel like posting? What happens when you're tired of performing? What happens when the likes slow down? The private way to measure progress is completely different. You set a standard for yourself. Let's say 5 workouts a week. And every week, you ask yourself one question. Did I do 5 workouts? That's it. No posts, no updates, no performance. Just a private commitment between you and you. And at the end of the week, you either kept your word or you didn't, and that becomes your metric. That becomes your measure of progress. Not who noticed, not who commented, but whether you did what you said you'd do. And here's what's beautiful about this approach. When you measure progress privately, you develop something rare and powerful, internal integrity. You develop the ability to trust yourself. Because every time you keep your word to yourself, you're making a deposit into your self-respect account. You're proving to yourself that you're reliable, that you're consistent, that you're someone who follows through. And over time, that builds a foundation of confidence that no amount of external validation could ever create. Because it's not borrowed, it's earned, it's yours. The market will eventually notice what you've built. But it doesn't need to notice while you're building it. In fact, it's often better if it doesn't. Because when no one's watching, you're free to fail, adjust, learn, and grow without the pressure of maintaining an image. You're free to experiment. You're free to be messy. You're free to try things that might not work. And that freedom is where real growth happens. Think about a child learning to walk. They fall constantly. They stumble. They fail over and over again. But they're not embarrassed because there's no performance pressure. They're just learning. They're just trying. And because they're free to fail without judgment, they learn faster. The same principle applies to adults. When you remove the audience, you remove the fear of looking bad. And when you remove the fear of looking bad, you remove the biggest barrier to growth. Success is an inside job with outside rewards. Build internally first. The external will follow. I've seen this pattern repeat itself hundreds of times. The people who build success quietly, who measure their progress privately, who focus on becoming better rather than looking better, those are the people who last. Those are the people who build wealth that compounds. Those are the people who develop influence that endures. Not because they chased it, but because they built something worth noticing. Rule number 2, protect your disciplines from spectators. Here's the second rule, and it's one most people violate constantly. Protect your disciplines from spectators. Let me explain. When you announce what you're going to do, something strange happens. You get a little hit of satisfaction, a little dopamine. People say, good for you, or that's amazing, or I'm so proud of you. And your brain registers that as accomplishment, but you haven't actually accomplished anything yet. You've just talked about it. And now the discipline becomes harder because you've already received some of the reward, the social reward, the validation reward. And subconsciously your brain says, why do the hard work when I already got the good feeling? This is why so many New Year's resolutions fail. People announce them, get celebrated, then quit. The announcement replaced the action. The performance replaced the progress. I've watched this happen over and over. Someone decides they're going to write a book, so they tell everyone. They post about it. They talk about it at parties. And everyone says, wow, that's incredible. I can't wait to read it. You're so talented. And the person feels amazing. They feel like an author. They got the social reward of being an author without doing the work of being an author. And then, when it comes time to actually sit down and write, it's hard. It's lonely. It's boring. And they've already gotten the good feeling, so where's the motivation? The solution? Do the work first. Announce it later. Let your results do the talking. Build your disciplines in private, where they're safe from distraction, safe from judgment, safe from premature celebration. I learned this the hard way. Every time I announced a big goal early, I struggled to complete it. But the goals I kept private, I crushed them. Why? Because I wasn't working for applause. I was working for results. Let me tell you about a goal I set years ago. I decided I wanted to read 50 books in a year. Now, my first instinct was to tell people, to announce it, to create some accountability. But something stopped me. I realized that if I announced it, I'd be working for their approval. I'd be reading to prove something. And that would corrupt the process. So I kept it private. I didn't tell anyone. I just started reading. And something amazing happened. Without the pressure of public accountability. Without the need to update people on my progress. Without the performance aspect, I fell in love with the reading itself. I read because I wanted to learn. I read because I was curious. I read because it was changing me, not because I needed to hit a number to avoid looking bad. Some weeks I read 3 books, some weeks I read 1. It didn't matter. There was no one to impress, no one to report to, just me and the learning. And by the end of the year, I'd read 63 books. Not 50, 63. Not because I was trying to overachieve, but because the discipline had become its own reward. The learning had become intrinsically motivating. And all of that happened because I protected it from spectators. Here's the paradox, and write this down because it's important. The less you need to tell people what you're doing, the more likely you are to actually do it. The less you depend on their encouragement, the more powerful your internal motivation becomes. The less you perform your progress, the more real your progress becomes. Now, I'm not saying you should never share your goals. I'm not saying you should hide everything. What I'm saying is be very careful about when you share and why you share. Ask yourself, am I sharing this to connect or am I sharing this to impress? Am I sharing this because it's meaningful to me or because I need validation? Am I sharing the result or am I performing the process? Those are very different things, and the difference matters. Share the result after you've done the work. Share the lesson after you've learned it. Share the transformation after you've experienced it, but protect the process, protect the discipline, protect the quiet hours where the real work happens. Because those hours are sacred. Those hours are where you become who you're meant to become. And they need to be protected from the distraction of an audience. Rule number 3, let your work compound in silence. Here's rule 3, and this is where patience becomes your greatest asset. Let your work compound in silence. You've heard of compound interest, right? Small amounts, invested consistently over time, grow exponentially. Success works the same way. But here's the catch. Compounding requires patience. It requires you to keep investing even when you can't see the results yet. And that's where most people quit, because they're looking for immediate feedback, immediate validation, immediate proof that it's working. But real success doesn't work like that. Real success compounds quietly, invisibly, over months and years. Then one day, it becomes undeniable. Think about the tree. It spends years growing roots underground. You can't see it, you can't measure it, it looks like nothing's happening. You plant a seed, and for weeks, sometimes months, you see nothing. The ground looks the same. There's no visible progress. And if you're impatient, you start to wonder, did I plant it wrong? Is the seed dead? Should I dig it up and check? But beneath the surface, everything is happening. The seed is breaking open. Roots are forming. A foundation is being built. And all of that work, all of that growth is invisible. It's underground. It's in silence. But those roots are the foundation. They're what will allow the tree to withstand storms, to reach great heights, to produce fruit. And when the tree finally breaks through the surface, when it finally becomes visible, it grows fast. Why? Because the work was already done. Underground, in silence, your life works the same way. The disciplines you build today, reading, learning, saving, improving, they don't show results immediately, but they're compounding quietly, invisibly, and if you protect them from the need for applause, if you let them grow in silence, one day they'll break through. And when they do, people will call it luck. They'll call it overnight success. They'll say you're talented, you're gifted, you're lucky. But you'll know the truth. You'll know it was years of quiet work that nobody saw. Years of reading when you were tired. Years of saving when you wanted to spend. Years of learning when you could have been entertained. Years of discipline when you could have been comfortable. And all of those years, compounding in silence, created the breakthrough that looks sudden to everyone else. I remember when I first started speaking publicly. For years, nobody knew my name. I'd speak at small events, little seminars, anywhere someone would let me share what I'd learned. And the rooms were often half empty. Sometimes there were more chairs than people. And I'd look out at those sparse crowds and think, is this worth it? Is anyone even listening? Should I quit? But I kept going, not because I was getting famous, not because people were celebrating me, but because I believed in what I was teaching. I believed that these principles could change lives. And I was willing to compound my skills in silence. Every speech I gave, I got a little better. Every seminar I taught, I learned a little more about connecting with people. Every question someone asked, I refined my thinking. And all of that was happening invisibly. Nobody was tracking my progress. Nobody was cheering me on. It was just me, night after night, hotel after hotel, small room after small room, investing in the craft, compounding the skill, building the foundation. And then one day, everything changed. One day the room started filling up. One day people started talking about what I was teaching. One day the opportunities multiplied. And people would say, wow, you just blew up overnight. But I'd smile and think, this wasn't overnight. This was 10 years underground. 10 years of roots growing in silence. 10 years of compounding in obscurity. And now you're seeing the tree break through the surface. But the real work happened long before you noticed. Can you do the work even when no one's applauding? That's where your future's built. Can you invest in yourself when there's no immediate return? Can you stay consistent when no one's watching? Can you keep planting seeds even when you can't see the harvest yet? Because that's the difference between people who succeed and people who quit. People who succeed understand that the work compounds in silence, and they're willing to wait. They're willing to trust the process. They're willing to invest today for a harvest they won't see until tomorrow. And here's what's beautiful about compounding. Once it reaches a certain point, it becomes exponential. The first few years, the growth feels slow, painfully slow. You're working hard and seeing minimal results, but you keep going. And then one day, the curve bends. The growth accelerates. The results multiply. And suddenly, it feels like everything is happening at once, but it's not happening all at once. It's the result of years of silent investment, years of consistent discipline, years of compounding. And the people who understand this, who embrace this, who protect this process, they're the ones who build wealth that lasts, influence that endures, lives that matter. Rule number 4, build character when no one's watching. Here's rule 4, and this one's the foundation for everything else. Build character when no one's watching. Character is who you are when the door is closed, when the camera's off, when there's no one to impress. It's the decisions you make in private that determine the life you live in public. Most people think success is about skills, and skills matter, but character matters more, because skills can get you to the top, but character keeps you there. Skills can open doors, but character determines what you do once you're inside. You can be the most talented person in the room, the smartest person in the room, the most skilled person in the room. But if your character is weak, if your integrity is compromised, if your private life contradicts your public image eventually, it all falls apart. And here's the thing about character. You can't fake it. Not for long. You can fake success. You can fake confidence. You can fake wealth. You can rent a car, lease a house, wear expensive clothes, and look successful. But you can't fake character. Not for long. Because character reveals itself in the small moments, the private moments, the moments when no one's testing you. Do you keep your word to yourself? Do you do what you said you'd do, even when it's hard? Do you maintain your standards, even when no one's holding you accountable? Do you tell the truth, even when a lie would be easier? Do you do the right thing, even when no one will know? That's character, and it's built in silence. It's built in the moments that don't make it to social media. It's built in the decisions that no one sees. Let me tell you what I mean. You're at a store. The cashier gives you too much change. Nobody saw it. Nobody would ever know. What do? That's a character moment. You're working on a project. You could cut a corner, save some time, save some money. Nobody would notice. What do? That's a character moment. You made a commitment to someone. Something better comes along. You could cancel, make an excuse. They'd probably understand. What do? That's a character moment. These small decisions, these private moments, these invisible choices, they're building your character. They're determining who you're becoming. And who you're becoming determines what you build, what you attract, what you keep. I'll tell you something I've learned over decades of watching people succeed and fail. The people who win quietly are usually the people with the strongest character, because they're not performing. They're not trying to look good. They're actually being good. And that's a completely different game. When you're trying to look good, you're always worried about the image. You're always managing perception. You're always performing. And that's exhausting. But when you're focused on being good, on building real character, on becoming someone of substance, you're free. You're free from the performance. You're free from the pressure. You're free to just be who you are, knowing that who you are is solid. Here's a question I ask myself regularly. And I encourage you to ask yourself the same thing. If everything I do in private was suddenly made public, Would I be embarrassed? Would my reputation survive? Would people still respect me? If the answer is no, then you have character work to do. If the answer is yes, then you're building on solid ground. Your reputation is what people think you are. Your character is what you actually are. And in the long run, your character will always determine your destiny. You can manage your reputation for a while. You can control the narrative. You can craft the image. But eventually, character leaks out. Eventually, the private person and the public person have to align. And if they don't, if there's a gap between who you pretend to be and who you actually are, that gap will destroy you. I've seen incredibly talented people lose everything because their character couldn't sustain what their talent had built. I've seen businesses collapse, not because the product was bad, but because the person running it couldn't be trusted. I've seen relationships end, not because love was gone, but because integrity was missing. Character matters. It matters more than talent, more than charisma, more than intelligence, more than any other single factor. So how do you build character? The same way you build anything else consistently, privately, deliberately. You start making small decisions in alignment with who you want to become. You start keeping your word to yourself. You start doing the right thing even when it's hard. You start telling the truth even when a lie would be easier. And you do this over and over and over again in private, when no one's watching, when there's no reward except the internal knowledge that you're becoming someone you respect. And over time, those small decisions compound. Those private choices build a foundation of character that becomes unshakable. And that character, that internal solidity, becomes the greatest asset you have. It becomes the thing that allows you to sleep well at night. It becomes the thing that allows you to look at yourself in the mirror and respect who you see. It becomes the thing that allows you to build a life you don't have to escape from. Rule number 5, let results speak louder than words. Here's rule 5, and this is where we separate talkers from doers. Let results speak louder than words. There's an old saying, talk is cheap. And it is. Anyone can talk about what they're going to do. Anyone can make promises. Anyone can paint a picture of success. Anyone can describe the business they're going to build, the book they're going to write, the life they're going to create. But very few people actually do the work to make it real. The people who win quietly understand this deeply. They don't waste energy on explanations. They don't defend themselves. They don't need to convince you of their value. They simply produce results. And results are the ultimate form of communication. Results don't need a narrative. Results don't need spin. Results don't need justification. Results speak for themselves. You want respect? Earn it with results. You want credibility? Build it with results. You want influence? Create it with results. Words might get you attention, but results get you everything else. Words might open the door, but results keep it open. Words might create opportunity, but results create longevity. And here's the beautiful part. When you let your results do the talking, you free yourself from the exhausting work of self-promotion. You don't have to convince anyone. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to manage your image. You just show up, do excellent work, and let the market respond. And the market always responds to results. Always. It might not be immediate. It might not be dramatic. But the market always recognizes real value eventually. I've watched this play out over and over. The loudest people in the room rarely have the best results. They're too busy talking. They're spending their energy on the announcement instead of the accomplishment. They're investing in the performance instead of the product. But the quiet ones, they're busy building. And eventually the market notices. It always does. Let me tell you about a man I met years ago. He was at a business conference, sitting in the back taking notes, not saying much. During the break, everyone was networking, exchanging business cards, talking about their companies, trying to impress each other. This man sat quietly, listening more than talking. Someone asked him what he did. He said, "I'm in manufacturing. That's it. No elaboration. No sales pitch. Just, I'm in manufacturing." Later, I found out he owned one of the largest manufacturing companies in the region, employed thousands of people, generated millions in revenue. But you'd never know it from talking to him. He didn't need you to know. His results spoke for themselves. His business was his credibility. His track record was his resume. He didn't need to sell you on his success. because his success was undeniable. And that's the power of letting results speak. When you have real results, you don't need to announce them. When you've built something substantial, you don't need to defend it. When you've created real value, you don't need to convince people. They can see it, they can feel it, they know. Now contrast that with the person who's constantly talking about what they're going to do. The person who's always explaining their vision, defending their decisions, justifying their choices. That person is trying to convince you, and probably themselves, that they're successful. But if they had real results, they wouldn't need to try so hard. The results would do the convincing. Here's the principle, and it's one of the most important things I can teach you. Stop explaining yourself and start proving yourself. Quietly, consistently, undeniably. Let your work ethic speak. Let your consistency speak. Let your results speak. And watch how the world responds. When you let results speak louder than words, you also protect yourself from a dangerous trap, the trap of becoming all talk and no action. Because when you spend your energy talking about what you're going to do, you have less energy to actually do it. When you spend your time explaining your plans, you have less time to execute your plans. When you spend your focus managing perception, you have less focus for creating results. So here's my challenge to you. For the next 30 days, talk less about what you're doing and just do more. Stop announcing, stop explaining, stop performing, just work, just build, just execute. And at the end of 30 days, compare your results to the previous 30 days. I'll bet you accomplish more. I'll bet you make more progress. I'll bet you feel more satisfied because you were working for results, not reactions. You were investing in substance, not spectacle. And over time, as you build this discipline, as you make this shift, something remarkable happens. You develop a reputation for reliability. People start to know that when you say you'll do something, you do it. They don't need a detailed update. They don't need constant reassurance. They just trust that you'll deliver. And that trust, that reputation for results, becomes one of your greatest assets. It opens doors. It creates opportunities. It builds influence, all without you having to say a word. Rule number 6, cultivate inner wealth over outer image. And here's the final rule, the one that ties everything together, the one that might be the most important of all. Cultivate inner wealth over outer image. Inner wealth is what you carry inside you that no one can take away. Your knowledge, your skills, your disciplines, your character, your philosophy, your peace, your wisdom, your values. This is real wealth. This is permanent wealth. This is the wealth that goes with you everywhere. Outer image is what you display to convince others you're successful. The car, the clothes, the house, the vacation photos, the carefully curated social media presence, the performance of success. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with nice things. There's nothing wrong with enjoying the fruits of your labor. There's nothing wrong with having material possessions. But if your sense of success depends on them, if your confidence requires them, if your peace is conditional on maintaining them, you're building on sand. Because outer image is fragile. It requires maintenance. It requires validation. It requires other people to believe the story you're telling. It requires constant investment, constant management, constant attention. And the moment you can't maintain it, the moment the image cracks, your sense of success collapses with it. But inner wealth, it's bulletproof. It's yours. It doesn't need an audience. It doesn't collapse when the economy shifts or when people stop paying attention. It stays with you through every season of life. The people who win quietly understand this deeply. They invest in themselves more than they invest in their image. They read more than they post. They learn more than they broadcast. They grow more than they show. They understand that the real wealth is internal, not external. The real success is who they've become, not what they've accumulated. Let me ask you a question. If you lost everything tomorrow, your job, your money, your possessions, your status, who would you be? Would you still have value? Would you still have worth? Would you still have something to offer? If the answer is yes, it's because you've been cultivating inner wealth. If the answer is no, it's because you've been investing in outer image. Inner wealth is developed through learning, through reading, through experience, through failure and recovery, through discipline and consistency, through challenging yourself, through doing hard things, through keeping your commitments, through building character in private, through all the things we've been talking about in these 6 rules. When you have inner wealth, you have options, you have freedom. You have confidence that doesn't depend on circumstances. You have peace that doesn't require permission. You have the ability to start over if you need to, because what you've built is inside you, not around you. I remember talking to a man who'd lost his business in an economic downturn, lost everything, house gone, savings gone, had to start completely over. And I asked him, how are you doing? And he said something that stuck with me. He said, I lost my business, but I didn't lose what I learned building my business. I lost my money, but I didn't lose my ability to make money. I lost my status, but I didn't lose my character. Everything external is gone, but everything internal is still here. And that's all I need to rebuild. That's inner wealth. That's what I'm talking about. That's the wealth that matters. That's the wealth you want to cultivate, because that's the wealth that can never be taken from you. And over time, this creates something remarkable, a life that feels successful from the inside out, not from the outside in. A life where your peace doesn't depend on applause. A life where your confidence isn't borrowed from other people's opinions. A life where you know your worth independent of external validation. And here's the ultimate irony. When you stop chasing outer image and start cultivating inner wealth, the outer image often improves anyway. Because when you're genuinely confident, genuinely competent, genuinely at peace, people can sense it, they're attracted to it, they want to be around it. Not because you're performing success, but because you're embodying it. You can't buy inner wealth with outer image, but you can build outer success with inner wealth. Choose wisely. Invest in what lasts. Invest in what's real. Invest in what can't be taken away. Invest in you, the real you, the inner you, the you that exists independent of anyone's opinion or acknowledgement. So let me bring this down to the ground now. Let me make this practical. Because philosophy without application is just entertainment. And I didn't come here to entertain you. I came here to equip you. I came here to give you tools you can use today, not theories you can admire from a distance. So here's how you start winning quietly, starting right now, starting today. First, create a private scoreboard. Get a journal, a notebook. Doesn't have to be fancy, doesn't have to be expensive, just something where you can write. And every evening before you go to bed, I want you to ask yourself 3 questions. Write them down at the top of the page. Question 1, did I keep my word to myself today? Question 2, did I do the work I committed to, regardless of who was watching? Question 3, am I better today than I was yesterday? Write down your honest answers. No one will see this but you. That's the point. That's the power. This is your private scoreboard. This is where you measure the progress that matters, not the progress other people see, not the progress that makes it to social media, but the real progress, the internal progress, the progress that's building the life you actually want to live. And over time, this simple practice will do something powerful. It will shift your sense of success from external validation to internal integrity. It will train you to value your private commitments more than your public image. It will teach you that the most important promise you can keep is the promise you make to yourself. And that shift, that fundamental reorientation of how you measure success will change everything. Second, implement the 30-day silence rule. Here's a challenge. For the next 30 days, don't announce your goals. Don't broadcast your progress. Don't post about the work you're doing. Just do it quietly. Work on your discipline in private. Build your business in silence. Improve your health without updates. Study without sharing. Grow without performing, just for 30 days. Just as an experiment, just to see what happens. And at the end of 30 days, evaluate. Ask yourself, did the work get easier or harder without the audience? Did my motivation increase or decrease? Did I accomplish more or less? Did I feel more or less satisfied? My guess, you'll accomplish more. Because you'll stop working for applause and start working for results. And that's where real power lives. That's where real progress happens. That's where the transformation you're looking for actually occurs. Third, build one unkillable discipline. Pick one discipline, just one that you're going to build in complete silence. something that matters to your future, something that'll compound over time. Maybe it's reading 30 minutes a day. Maybe it's saving 10% of your income. Maybe it's working out 5 days a week. Maybe it's learning a new skill. Maybe it's waking up an hour earlier. Maybe it's journaling. Maybe it's meditating. Maybe it's practicing gratitude. Whatever it is, commit to it privately. Don't tell anyone. Don't track it publicly. Don't post about it. Just build it day after day, week after week, month after month. Let it compound in silence. Protect it from spectators. Let it grow in the quiet and watch what happens. Watch how that one discipline starts to change everything else. Watch how it builds confidence, not because anyone noticed, but because you kept your word to yourself. Watch how it creates momentum. Watch how it spills over into other areas of your life. That's the foundation. One quiet, consistent discipline that becomes unkillable. One commitment that you honor no matter what. One standard that you maintain regardless of circumstances. And once you've built one, you can build another, and then another. And over time, these quiet disciplines stack, they compound. They create a foundation of character and competence that becomes unshakable. Fourth, audit your associations. Take a hard look at who you're spending time with. Are they builders or performers? Are they focused on substance or spectacle? Are they celebrating real progress or just celebrating appearances? Are they working in silence or performing for applause? Because the people you associate with will shape how you measure success. If you're surrounded by people who only value visibility, you'll chase visibility. If you're surrounded by people who only care about looking successful, you'll focus on the image instead of the substance. But if you're surrounded by people who value character and discipline, who work quietly, who build in silence, who measure progress privately, you'll become like them. You become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. That's not just a saying, that's a principle, that's a law. Your associations shape your aspirations. Your environment shapes your expectations. The voices you listen to most will become the voice in your head. So choose carefully. Spend time with people who win quietly, people who do the work, people who value the process more than the applause. And if you can't find those people in person, find them in books, find them in seminars, find them in biographies, find them in podcasts. Find them in the voices of people who've built lives worth living. Let them mentor you in silence. Let their wisdom become your standard. Let their example become your guide. Fifth, protect your early morning. If you want to win quietly, you need time alone, time to think, time to work, time to build without distraction, time to invest in yourself before the world starts making demands. And the best time for this? Early morning. Before the world wakes up, before the demands start, before the noise begins. Get up an hour earlier, just 1 hour. I know it's hard, I know you're tired, I know you like your sleep, but I'm telling you, this 1 hour can change your life. Use that time to work on yourself. Read, write, plan, reflect, build your disciplines, invest in your inner wealth, study, learn, think, pray, if that's part of your life. Journal, set your intentions for the day. This 1 hour, protected and consistent, will do more for your future than 100 hours of reactive, distracted work. Why? Because it's quiet. It's focused. It's yours. There's no one else awake making demands. There's no phone ringing. There's no emails coming in. There's no meetings to attend. It's just you and your future. You and your growth. You and the work that matters most. And over time, this becomes your competitive advantage. While everyone else is scrolling, reacting, performing, you're building quietly, relentlessly, inevitably. You're investing in yourself before you give yourself away to the world. You're filling your cup before you pour it out for others. You're sharpening your saw before you start cutting wood. And finally, delay the announcement. Here's a simple rule that will transform your relationship with success. When you accomplish something, when you hit a goal, when you make progress, wait. Don't post it. Don't share it. Not yet. Let it sit. Let it be yours for a while. Let the satisfaction come from the accomplishment itself, not from the reaction to the accomplishment. Give it a week, a month, maybe longer. And then, if you still feel the need to share it, but I'll bet you something. After that waiting period, you won't need to share it as much because you'll have already received the real reward, the internal satisfaction of knowing you did what you said you'd do, the private pride of keeping your commitment, the quiet confidence of proving to yourself that you're capable. And that's the reward that lasts. That's the reward that builds a life. That's the reward that sets you free. Because it's not dependent on anyone's reaction. It's not conditional on anyone's validation. It's yours, fully, completely, permanently. So let me bring this home. We started with a simple idea that the loudest people in the room rarely own the room. And I hope by now you understand why. Because winning isn't about volume. It's not about visibility. It's not about convincing other people you're successful. Winning is about becoming someone who doesn't need applause to feel successful. Someone who builds in silence. Someone who measures progress privately. Someone who protects their disciplines, lets their work compound, builds character in the dark, and lets results do the talking. That's winning quietly, and it's available to you. Starting today, starting with one small private decision to do the work no one sees. Starting with one commitment you keep when no one's watching. Starting with one discipline you build in silence. Here's what I want you to remember. Write this down if you need to. Put it somewhere, you'll see it every day. Your private disciplines determine your public results. Build in silence. Win with substance. Let your life do the talking. That's the mantra, that's the truth, that's the path. And if you take nothing else from this, take this. You don't need permission to start. You don't need an audience to begin. You don't need validation to keep going. You just need the willingness to work when no one's watching. To build when no one's cheering. To become excellent in the quiet. To invest in yourself when there's no immediate return. To trust the process when you can't see the harvest yet. To keep planting seeds even when the ground looks bare. And if you do that, if you commit to these 6 rules, if you protect your disciplines, if you measure your progress privately, if you let your work compound in silence, if you build character when no one's watching, if you let results speak louder than words, if you cultivate inner wealth over outer image, then one day, not tomorrow, not next week, but one day, you'll look around and realize something profound. You won. Quietly, permanently, completely. And no one can take that from you. Because it wasn't built on applause. It wasn't built on validation. It wasn't built on image. It was built on substance. It was built on character. It was built on disciplines that no one saw, but that everyone will eventually feel the impact of. The world celebrates overnight success, but you'll know the truth. You'll know it was 10 years underground, 10 years of roots growing in silence, 10 years of disciplines compounding in obscurity, 10 years of work that no one saw, and you'll smile because you know something they don't. You know that the real victory wasn't when people noticed. The real victory was every day you showed up and did the work anyway. Now, if this resonated with you, if something in this message landed, if you felt a shift in your understanding of what success really means, do me a favor, hit that like button. Not for me. Do it for you. Do it as a commitment. Do it as a declaration that you're choosing substance over spectacle, that you're choosing to win quietly, that you're choosing to build in silence. And leave a comment. Tell me which of the 6 rules spoke to you the most. Was it measuring progress privately? Was it protecting your disciplines from spectators? Was it letting your work compound in silence? Was it building character when no one's watching? Was it letting results speak louder than words? Or was it cultivating inner wealth over outer image? Tell me which one resonated. Tell me which one you're going to implement first. Because when you articulate it, when you put it into words, it becomes more real. It becomes more actionable. It becomes yours. And if you want more of this, more truth, more philosophy, more practical wisdom for building a life that matters, subscribe to this channel. Because I'm not here to entertain you. I'm not here to make you feel good for a moment and then send you back to the same life. I'm here to equip you. I'm here to challenge you. I'm here to give you the tools, the principles, the wisdom that can actually change your trajectory. And there's a lot more where this came from. Until next time, remember this. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Because if you work hard on your job, you'll make a living. But if you work hard on yourself, you'll make a fortune. Build in silence. Win with character. Let your disciplines compound in obscurity. Protect the quiet hours. Measure your progress privately. Keep your word to yourself and let your life do the talking. You don't need to be the loudest person in the room. You need to be the most solid. You don't need to convince people you're successful. You need to become someone who is actually successful, whether anyone notices or not. You don't need applause. You need integrity. You don't need validation. You need discipline. You don't need an audience. You need character. And when you build those things in silence, when you invest in inner wealth instead of outer image, when you commit to the quiet disciplines that no one celebrates, but that everyone eventually benefits from, you become inevitable. You become the person opportunities find. You become the person respect follows. You become the person who doesn't chase success because success can't help but chase you. That's the life I want for you. That's the future I want you to build. Not a life of performance and exhaustion, but a life of substance and freedom. Not a life that collapses when people stop watching, but a life that strengthens in the silence. Not a life built on borrowed confidence, but a life built on earned character. So go do the work, the quiet work, the hard work, the work that no one sees. Go build the disciplines, the private disciplines, the consistent disciplines, the disciplines that compound. Go, become the person you respect, the person you trust, the person you're proud to be when the door's closed and the camera is off. And remember, the work you do when no one's watching will determine the life you live when everyone is. Your secret disciplines will create your public results. Your private commitments will shape your public reality. Your quiet character will produce your loud success. Win quietly. Build silently. Grow consistently. And let your life be the loudest message you ever send. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your willingness to hear a different message in a world that's screaming for you to be loud. Now go do the work, and I'll see you in the next one.